Welcome to MidwestHammer, a Warhammer podcast for experienced and new Warhammer nerds alike. Hosted by two wonderful Midwesterners, I am your first host and Imperial Historian Sanguine.
And I am Fathom, your resident serial killer and host. I am here to learn just as much as you guys. I have some limited knowledge on topics in Warhammer. Now time for a quote.
Perfect ecstasy, boundless cacophony, excessive agony. I must have more. Anonymous Emperor's Children Chaos Space Marine.
That certainly sounds like it.
Today we will be discussing the Emperor's Children. To start, the Primarch is named Fulgrim. They are the 3rd Legion, and his nicknames would be the Phoenician or the Palatine Phoenix. He was born, or more correctly, landed on the world of Chemos. And this will be our first, what we would call Traitor Legion, aligned with a particular Chaos God, which is Slaanesh. We will be discussing how they got to fall to Slaanesh, as well as their bountiful, or limited, I guess would be a better term probably, actions in the Great Crusade that were very impactful, and then their role in the Horus Heresy, and then what exactly they're doing afterwards. So to start, the Emperor's Children Primarch Fulgrim landed on a desolate world called Chemos, a resource-poor mining world where the quality of life was poor and rationing was common, and there was no time for creative arts or endeavors. Fulgrim was adopted by a fortress factory of Calyx after the scouts of the town found his capsule crashed in the waste of Chemos. Enraptured by the perfection of this child, they brought him back to the fortress, where, uncommon to the traditions of Chemos and the necessity of Chemos, he was spared, unlike most orphans would have been, and he was taken under the care of the guards known as caretakers.
So, perfect baby's Jesus child found and brought into the fortress.
Yep. And unlike most children of Chemos, which would be either left out in exposure or killed, he was allowed to be alive because basically everyone that looked at him was like, he's perfect. He is the like exact phenotype for perfection, pretty much like
The human personification of ooh shiny.
Yeah, pretty much. Fulgrim is also, funnily enough, one of the names of a god of Chemos that they gave him that name because they thought he was, perfect. So they named him after one of their gods. But at a young age, Fulgrim was sent to work in the mines, much younger than most, and he was more capable than most of the adults about twice his age. By 15, the young Primarch had become an executive in Calyx, which is one of their leaders, and he had increased the efficiency of the mining tools and gear dramatically. Under his direction, Fulgrim, Calyx, and its forces set out to reclaim and repair many mining facilities around their area and all over Chemos, eventually taking over the planet and ushering in a new golden age in Chemos, endorsing a new wave of artists, scientists, musicians, and other artisans. So he made it
Literally
go from a desolate place where food rationing was common, and he made the tools and the equipment that they were using. He found ways to make them more efficient, to the point where they were able to have enough leisure time and have people dedicated to careers other than just production. Because if you didn't produce on Chemos before that, you would just end up dying. Like there would be no point. It's either you worked or everyone died.
So what you're telling me is that Fulgrim is the ideal form of Chairman Mao. Perfectly resculpting the land and dragging forth many of his brothers and sisters from poverty by his administrative decisions.
Yeah, he was basically the ideal leader as an ideal leader as you could get in the Stesla world. So, and Fulgrim was the fifth of the Primarchs found by the Emperor's Crusade.
Fifth?
Yep, he was the fifth found. So he was one of the first. He was one of the first Primarchs found. When the Emperor reunited with them on Chemos, Fulgrim rose out of his throne, walked up to the Emperor, kneeled before him, and started weeping. And immediately pledged his service to the Emperor. So, no arguments, no challenges. He just said, "My father, you have come." And then started crying.
All plus golden makes me a bottom.
Yeah. I guess that's one way to put it. I mean, if there was a Primarch that was a bottom, it would probably be...
Okay, yeah, let's be honest. Okay. But Fulgrim has insane amounts of power bottom energy.
Okay.
We'll get there later.
Into that one.
We'll circle around.
Yeah. But when Fulgrim was brought back to Terra, he was taught many things by the Emperor. Most importantly, he was introduced to his sons as Space Marines, the Emperor's children. They had basically been destroyed to a man, leaving only a few hundred of them due to a gene seed blight. And when he saw these Space Marines, he basically wept and then realized that, wow, I am left with probably the smallest legion out of any of my brothers. And he gave this rousing speech to them, basically gave it his all, to the point where even the Emperor was kind of like, damn, that was a good speech. And amongst that and other things that the Emperor's children have did before that, they were allowed to have the title of Emperor's children and bear what is called the Palatine Aquila, which is the personal seal of the Emperor. And they were the only legion allowed to do this during the Horus Era.
So they're allowed to give speeches?
No, he gave a speech, but they were allowed to bear the Palatine Aquila.
Which is?
So they were allowed to have the armor, the symbol of the Emperor on their chest plates, which no other Space Marine Legion was allowed to do. But Fulgrim gave this big speech. And the Emperor's children had a few deeds in prior battles that made the Emperor particularly take a liking to them, and just kind of out of the tragedy of their existence being kind of like a painful one, he decided to allow them to take up the name of Emperor's children and bear that symbol.
So, just to also put this forward, the entire Legion also has bottom energy. They like making Daddy happy.
An interesting take, but while on Terra, he also met some of his brothers, the most important of which being Horus and Ferrus Manus. When Fulgrim met Ferrus, it was in the forages of Mount Nerodia. They where the Ferrus was already there, crafting particularly well crafted weapons and kind of playing up how good of a blacksmith he was to the tech priest and the other forge masters that were there. But Ferrus basically asked Fulgrim what he was doing there, and Fulgrim said, "I am here to craft the most perfect weapon of all time." And Ferrus's response was basically, "What was those soft hands of yours?" And that started a 3-month-long competition where they both tried to forge the greatest weapons that they could. And by the end of it, Fulgrim and Ferrus had taken a look at their weapons. Fulgrim had crafted this glorious masterwork hammer that he called Forge Breaker, and Ferrus had crafted an exquisite flaming sword that he dubbed Fireblade. Both saw the weapons that the other had made, declared the other the winner, and spent what was believed to be days arguing about who was the winner of the competition. both arguing for the other one to
Did
be
no
the
one
leader.
question?
And eventually they decided to exchange weapons. Fulgrim taking the sword, and Ferris managed taking the hammer, and they decided to keep them in a show of friendship
Oh,
and a bond.
why? How? If you're the leader of anything, how do you have a month to spare like that?
Not a month, 3 months.
Exactly, 4 months actually, because they probably spent at least a few weeks arguing afterwards.
I mean, this was the point of the Great Crusade where I think certain Primarchs were still being like taught and introduced to their legions. So that's what I figure Ferris was doing. Ferris would also just kind of disappear, give his legionaries tasks, and then just do what he wanted for a little bit sometimes. Which Ferris's legion is one of the most well disciplined legions, so they really had no problems in doing that because he knew that his sons would just go do whatever he told them, and then obviously Fulgrim hadn't technically, I don't think at this point, been fully introduced to his legion, or his legion wasn't of the fighting strength to be going out crusading anyways, at least not by themselves. So they were just kind of waiting for assignments, but yeah, I mean, 3 months as far as the Great Crusade was concerned wasn't that long. So the Great Crusade went on for I think a few hundred years, so a few centuries. But yeah, no, they traded weapons. Said I like this, but I mean, if you really think about it, they basically made weapons for each other. Because when you look at Fulgrim, you don't see a man who'd be wielding this kind of like perfect silver-haired, kind of like artist-looking guy. You don't think he'd be wielding a giant thunder hammer. Meanwhile, you don't think Ferris, this gruff man, would be wielding a neat, exquisite-looking flaming sword. You know what I mean? So they in an extent, they built weapons that fit each other. And both of them, for a majority of the Great Crusade, would wield these weapons as their primary weapons.
Well, yeah, where else are they going to get a weapon that took 3 months to make?
Yeah.
By Primarchs.
Crafted by Primarchs and two of the best forge masters, with the exception of maybe Vulcan. So, but the Emperor's Children primarily served as an elite auxiliary during the Great Crusade for other legions for a good part of the crusade, due to the small number of Marines that they had and the obsession with perfection and skill, making some of the most exemplary Astartes. So they fight mostly alongside the Luna Wolves, aka the Sons of Horus, and in many campaigns they would fight alongside other legions as well. But they would basically, their functionality was to be either the elite auxiliaries or just the final nail in the coffin. So if you wanted someone to drop pod in and take out the enemy leadership, that was usually the Emperor's Children. But all of that is just kind of sidelined. There's certain events that we'll cover in probably the Sons of Horus episode that are involve the Emperor's Children kind of as a sideline faction. So and Fulgrim himself. But the first conflict the Emperor's Children took on as a independent fleet, the 20th Expeditionary Fleet, as they were called, was the one that would basically doom them. It was the extermination of the Lair. The Lair were considered to be so powerful and too powerful for one legion to take on. So the plan was either for the Emperor and Horus was to probably send 3 or more legions, or just declare them an imperial protectorate and let them basically live alongside humanity until we could deal with them later, or just exchange technology with them. But Fulgrim was setting out to prove himself and his legion to be the perfect legion. So what they basically started with was they obviously did some fleet engagements, as you do during war. And then they set off to Laren, which is the home world and one of the only populated worlds in the Lair's domain. So the Laren was a mostly oceanic world with floating anti-gravitic atolls. So they basically floated unnaturally. There was no like jets on them or anything. It was just they had anti-gravity technology that allowed them to float. Now, whereas the layer themselves lived mostly on those atolls. There was also plenty of them that lived in underwater areas amongst the world of Laren, because some of them were genetically modified to be able to breathe underwater. So, but the Emperor's children would engage these lair in basically an atoll by atoll battle, taking each one as they went, taking some serious losses while doing it as well. Uh, and they would just take an atoll with basically full Legion force, move auxiliaries in, so like Imperial Guard, or as they were called at the time, I think they were the just Imperial Army in general, so it was the Navy and the Army, or Navy and the Guard. I might be incorrect on the exact terms for that. But the layer in themselves were four-armed creatures that resembled kind of a snake, so they had a tail and everything. But they were proved to be fearsome fighters, just as predicted. So, I mean, the Emperor's children took every bit of land that was reaped in blood. So every single atoll that was taken, they would lose a good portion of their force, and basically all led up to this final battle over the final atoll, which had the Laren Temple on it, as it's called by Imperial historians, and it was basically a massive fight where a good majority of the Emperor's children, like I think 2 or 3 companies worth, were shot down before they even got to the battlefield by the anti-air defenses of the lair. And
I think you forgot an important part about the lair. The lair were passionate worshippers of Salnash.
well, we're getting to that. We're going to get to that.
Okay.
But the Fulgrim led the charge to the Lair Temple with as many Marines as he could muster. They'd fought dozens and dozens and hundreds of thousands of Lair in between this and the temple. But as soon as they got in the temple, there was nothing there besides. There's maybe like a few hundred Lair or a few dozen Lair laid out in the middle of the temple, having what could only be described by the people of the time as a Lair mating ritual. But basically what Fulgrim did was he looked around, he saw this weird looking sword at the end of the tunnel. It was kind of like, it was purple and silver, and it kind of was a very curvy and strange looking blade, very alien looking in design. But what he did was he saw that sword, walked over to it, grabbed it, and then he basically just told his Space Marines to kill every single layer that was left in the temple. And then later after that, he had ordered all of the Remembrancers, because this was the first battle that or one of the biggest battles that the Emperor's children had taken part in solo at the time. And the Remembrancers were these human beings that were following around the Crusade fleets to basically record what they were doing. And he had all of them, including a special lady we'll talk about later named Bekwa Kinska, who is a blue-haired maiden considered to be extensively attractive and an excellent singer. And all these Remembrancers that went down to this temple basically got enthralled with what they saw. Wild colors everywhere. There was a weird, loud music playing. And there were a very many other like exquisite statues and things like that were mostly depicting bullheaded things that like life forms that didn't even look like the lair, which was strange to most of the people at the time. But yes, she went down, and they basically came to the conclusion that she wanted to replicate the sounds and artistry of the temple, as well as most Remembrancers there did. But Remembrancers could be historians, and they could also be just musicians or artists or whatever. But the Emperor's Children in particular attracted a lot of more out there remembrancers because of the fact that that Fulgrim was very artistic. So a lot of remembrancers that were a little more on the wild side who were with other expeditions even requested to transfer to the Emperor's Children when they heard that Fulgrim was leading his expedition, because some of them had seen and talked to some of the Emperor's Children Space Marines and things when they were in like the Sons of Horus fleet and things like that. So, yeah, when the Emperor's Children left pretty much nothing of the lair besides the temple and records of the defeat. There were some bodies recovered in secret, though, and all of these would be studied by a gentleman that we're going to call Fabius Bile. He was the chief apothecary of the Emperor's Children, and he considered the Laren to be nearly perfect, and he wished to apply certain aspects of the lair biology into the Emperor's Children to potentially make them more perfect. The first unfortunate subject of his testing would be a gentleman named Lord Commander Eidolon, which we will discuss more about later. But is there anything you would like to know about the lair that I may have missed?
Let's see here. I mean, there's not really much to mention about them, but like, why were they so dangerous?
They were basically there were certain forms of the lair, because the lair had basically a caste system. So some of them were just genetically designed to be soldiers, pretty much. So they were extremely tough. They had weapons that would dematerialize people, and then they would all be carrying blades in one hand. They had 4 arms, so they had plenty of plenty of room for a multitude of weapons. And the ones that were particularly bred to be a warrior race, or a warrior part of the race, would be usually, like I said, more kind of just naturally armored. So their rib cage would just be replaced by a giant like sheet of bone, pretty much, to block any attacks to their like center cage, like I guess like abdomen and things like that. So they were just genetically engineered to do whatever they were supposed to do. And there were ones that were designed to fly, there were ones that were designed to be completely aquatic, and obviously those cause trouble when Space Marines aren't necessarily designed to be aquatic.
I'm pretty sure if you needed...
They can breathe underwater, but that's about it.
I'm reasonably sure that if you were talking about needing to have Space Marines fight a marine battle, it would literally just be them sinking to the bottom of whatever body of water that they're in. And
they can breathe underwater. It's just it's not necessarily their best like.
Oh, they have.
They
have
most
gills?
of them would prefer not to fight underwater.
They have gills.
No, they can just shut off their rebreather and breathe backup oxygen, pretty much. But they have that particularly for surviving toxic environments. But so it can also be used for that. Now, obviously, it slows them down a lot, makes it really hard to fight because moving around is slower when you're in a bunch of water. So it's not the ideal fighting. Like, no Space Marine would prefer to be underwater, and they can only survive maybe for a few hours on the oxygen like that. So it's just preferred not to.
It's just like the Walking Dead technique of just walking on the bottom of the body of water and just shooting up.
I think Pirates of the Caribbean.
Literally just walking under and just be like, we're gonna get there eventually. We're gonna get them.
Yeah. Yeah, but pretty much all the Emperor's Children Space Marines and Remembrancers that entered the temple at any point would have some level of obsession with it. It varied depending on who it was. And there's a gentleman that was the commander of the first company, so he was a Terminator captain, and he was named Julius. He would basically spend all of his nights that he wasn't fighting or listening to a play or something. He would spend most of that time going down into the requiems of the ship, so where all the information's at, and he would just keep studying and studying anything he could find, and he would find Bekokinska sitting down next to him sometimes, or walking around the library too, and then other remembrancers and other space marines coming down and asking about it. And the gentleman who was in the library in the Requisition was not in the Lair Temple, never went to it. So he was curious. He was just, like, why are there so many people coming to visit me over this Lair Temple? It must have been exquisite. But yeah. But after the events of the Lair, or the Lair extermination, or the Battle of 28, of the extermination of 28-3, depending on who you ask and what exactly you want to call it. The 28th would move to help the Iron Hands fleet fight basically an alliance of humans and Xenos that we call the Diasporics. They were a fleet-based, basically, I guess, faction of human beings that would just basically accept anybody into their fleet as long as they were willing to help out. But the Ferrus Manus would basically ask the humans, hey, if you abandon the Xenos, we'll allow you to live, and we'll allow you to come join the Imperium. And they basically said, yeah, no, screw off. So Ferrus Manus would, in his Iron Hands, would try to hunt down the Diasporics for a good while, taking some serious losses, and then they would eventually Ferrus Manus would go, hey, brother, can you help me? To Fulgrim. So the 28th would come. They would unite with the Iron Hands. Ferrus Manus and Fulgrim, when they first met from this engagement, would embrace, and then they would go talk about what to do. Fulgrim came up with the idea of that potentially the Diasporics were in that system and stuck there because they were refueling their ships. And that's what it seemed like they were doing and why they were hanging around the stars. So they began looking for these things called solar collectors, and they were going to destroy them to pull out the Diasporics into basically a fleet-based engagement where the two legions could use their numerical advantage to press the to actually win, because the Diasporics were hitting and running the Iron Hand ships, which was getting on Ferrus Manus' nerves quite a bit.
Damn, they're not staying for a prolonged engagement. God damn.
Yeah, so a Iron Hand ship would actually find the solar collectors first, and then he would radio back to Ferrus Manus saying, "Hey, we found them." And then the Ferrus Manus, of course, angered by all the fighting that he had done against the Diasporics before, and just generally because he's a hothead and and a gentleman who likes to kind of get to the point and get things over with, basically just ordered his fleet to charge in. And Fulgrim, of course, a perfectionist, a paragon of planning and making sure that everything goes perfectly, was extremely angry about this. And he basically just had to chase after the Iron Hands as they were rushing into battle.
Fulgrim's
so the Emperor's children.
Oh, hold on.
So the Emperor's children got there a little late, but when the Emperor's children got there, they didn't want to be left out of the glory. So what Fulgrim has all of his guys do is they get in a bunch of Thunderhawks and Stormbirds, and they basically launch boarding actions against the main capital ship of the Diasporics, which was a half Xeno, half human ship from the Dark Age of Technology, and basically the ship almost killed and was launching a full barrage against the particular Stormbird, which I think is called Firebird, of Fulgrim himself, which is literally a flaming Stormbird. Like it lights itself on fire because, showmanship and Fulgrim.
I like to just imagine that Fulgrim was really pissed off about this stuff. It's like, Ferrus, how many seconds of thought did you maybe put into this action? 1, 2, maybe even 3 if we're lucky here.
Well, then Fulgrim haphazardly charges in with with a boarding action against the enemy's capital ship. So he's kind of
Well,
he's not necessarily taking it smart afterwards because he's angry at Ferris. So as this barrage is weapons is being fired at Fulgrim's little Stormbird, the Iron Hand's capital ship gets in the way of the shots and basically saves Fulgrim. Now this, in most cases, most sane people would be like, "Oh, cool, he's helped me, and I'm alive." But Fulgrim had already had the whispers of the lair blade in his ear, so he took this as an insult that he would even need to be saved. So they boarded the ship. They went through the entire ship, killing everything that they found. Standard Space Marines. As they were, as funny enough, the last words of the Diasporix admiral, who was a human, was we just wanted to be left alone, as he was then proceeded to be executed. And all the humans that surrendered or were captured were sent to be sent to the forage worlds that were local to the system to be slaves or made into servitors, and all the Xenos that surrendered were executed for their crime of existence. But the Emperor's children, and Fulgrim especially, because of the fact that Fulgrim was saved in the way that he was, he basically got super angry that he was even that like I said, that he would even quote need to be saved. I don't need to be saved. That kind of
I would have been
mentality.
fine.
I would have been
I would have been
fine.
fine. The gunfire wasn't getting too heavy.
But he kind of gets a little grumpy about this whole situation because Ferris charged in, Fulgrim got saved from what almost certainly would have been his death, but she was like, I didn't need that.
There's no issues here. There was no issues until you decided to intervene. Can't believe you.
But they basically left on a slightly grumpy note and just decided, we'll screw off, go do our own thing now. But the Emperor's also gentleman. Okay, going back to it, there was a gentleman named Solomon Demeter, which was one of the Emperor's children's. I think he was, a company captain. He actually reached the bridge before Fulgrim. It's just none of that was ever recorded. The Fulgrim wouldn't allow the remembrancers or anybody else to give him battle honors. Because Fulgrim wanted to be the first to the bridge as explicit orders and per plan. But going past that, the Emperor's children after that. Okay, wait, is there anything you wanted to ask about the Diasporix before we move on to the next?
Like that would have been like the Diasporix like their own but they're just like a military forged of different Xenos and human race.
They were just a fleet of the craft worlds kind of just went around doing their own thing, floating around space. Basically, the Diasporix were humans from the Dark Age that were surviving well, and they integrated aliens into their fleet. And they basically were like, I don't know those guys from Mass Effect that were basically like fleet-based nomads. That's pretty much what they were. But they had a whole variety of aliens. The main one was like on the ship that Fulgrim boarded was like basically an insectoid alien. I don't really have a full description for them here, but they're insectoid and they're strong and good combatants. So, yeah. But there's also believed to be other races that they had in the fleet, but they was kind of glossed over as just killing my traders.
Well, how did they take? So I guess it doesn't really matter, but how did they take over the capital ship? Because they were barely, like I said, it sounded like most of the Space Marines that tried to go towards the capital ship died. Or is it just that the ship was
like I said, the Iron Hand ship kind of got in the way of the main barrage, but it was mostly targeted at Fulgrim's ship, which, like I said, got saved by the Iron Hands. But I'm sure some of them died before. Like I said, it was kind of a world washed over. So I know Solomon's party, and then the first, third, and fourth company made it, I think. But there was like eight full companies of Emperor's children there. So some of them probably died, but they weren't deploying a full company in each thing. It was just kind of like, oh, here's
3 guys
Here's
per
a
ship.
Stormbird,
3
so
guys
there's 50
per ship.
guys. No, I was probably like 50 in each, but yeah. But either way,
Master's
moving on. But yeah, the Emperor's children would further move on to a veiled area of space, where they found a bunch of abandoned, basically perfect paradise worlds, which Fulgrim at the time decided would not be reported back to the Imperium, because he basically saw these worlds, went, these are perfect. We shouldn't report these to humanity. We should leave them untouched. And this kind of drew the curiosity of this gentleman we call Eldred, who is a Eldar Farseer, Eldred Uthling of Craft World Uthway, who would make contact with the 28th Expeditionary Fleet and request a meeting with Fulgrim. So, the meeting was basically Eldred's idea was that he was going to alert Fulgrim to the issue that he had envisioned, because Farseers can see into the future. He had seen Horus's fall, and told him about the planet that he needed to go to basically save Horus. But of course, Fulgrim said, "No, you're just a lying Xeno.
Yeah, Xeno's trickery.
I don't believe you." And basically, Eldred was like, "No, I'm right. You may not believe me, but I'm right." And of course that doesn't help, because Fulgrim is probably the last person you want to go, "No, I'm right too."
So butting egos with fucking Fulgrim, and then
yes, which the Eldar are also a big ego, so that it makes sense that why that happened. But basically, Fulgrim, there was this Wraith Knight, or Wraith Lord that was sitting next to him, to Eldred. So basically, what happened was Fulgrim tried to lash out at Eldred. The Wraith Knight stepped in. They dueled, big duel. If you want to hear about it in like full detail, I would read the Emperor's Children, or not the Emperor's Children, the Fulgrim book. But yeah, they launch on this big fight. Fulgrim kills the Wraith Lord. All of the Eldar that are around him are fighting all of his honor guard. So the what's it called? The Palatine Guard, and which are the Emperor's children that basically have halberds, like power halberds, and then there was the captains of the Emperor's children were there as well, and they all just start fighting. The Eldred just runs. He escapes. He goes into a webway portal that was nearby where they came in from. And then what comes out of this webway portal is a avatar of Cain.
damn.
Oh, as well as a bunch of other Eldar. So the Emperor's children fighting their way through all the Eldar. They get towards this webway portal where this avatar of Cain just sees Fulgrim and goes, "Enemy spotted."
Damn.
Fulgrim takes one look at this thing, says, "Damn, he's looking at my sword kind of hard." So throws the sword up in the air. The avatar of Cain looks up at it, and then Fulgrim just charges it, rips out its throat, which if you don't know, an avatar of Cain is basically made out of pure molten metal. Yeah. Basically burns his hands off, like not off, but like he burns his hands.
That's not a good idea.
He rips out its throat, and it kills it.
How?
I don't know. I don't.
That's not how evidence. That's okay. From my limited knowledge of the Eldar, avatars of Cain are like essences of Cain. They're constructs
of the war god of Cain.
They're just energy constructs. How do you There's no weak point.
No idea. But the thing burst out in an explosion. Fulgrim, aside from his burned hands, is basically okay. He turns around, all of the Eldar are dead. Almost all the Palatine Guard that he came with are dead. Most of his captains are severely wounded. But I think one might have died. I don't quite remember. I think most of them are fine, like mostly fine. Well, except for being severely injured. But
So.
As fine as you can get for fighting an avatar of Cain with a bunch of Eldar.
So, an absolutely pointless battle. and he loses most of the assets he
That
brings
wa-
in.
it kind of put a doubt in the mind of Fulgrim, but also Fulgrim picks up his sword, and then he just has the weirdest fucking visions possible, and he just screams the one word over and over and over again into the sky. Slanesh, Slanesh, Slanesh.
So I'm just gonna bring this up now. We probably like how do we get ever any explanation for why the emperor has never like alerted his children? Because at this time the emperor was like studying chaos,
No,
studying the
no.
warp, studying chaos. He knows about it certainly, but
If we ever do an episode on the Emperor, we can talk more about that.
yeah, but just like it's just so stupid that it's like yep.
It is a little dumb, but he also had a point, but he also didn't have a point sure, at the same time. So it's just one of those things that could be debated in later moment. But by this point in the Emperor's Children history, Fabius Bile at some point in this anathema had rolled out a performance enhancing drug that he had synthesized from the DNA of the
Who is
lair.
Fabius Bile?
The chief apothecary of the Emperor's Children that I mentioned earlier.
Okay.
He basically was studying the layer bodies and DNA and stuff and organs to try to make the perfect space marines. So this new performance enhancing drug would be rolled out. So there were two Lord Commanders of the Emperor's Children at the time: Lord Commander Eidolon and Lord Commander Vespasian. Sorry. And Lord Commander Eidolon's troops, in Lord Commander Eidolon would allow his troops to have the new drug, but Lord Commander Vespasian's troops did not. They did not get it because he did not want them to have it because he thought it was concerning.
Xenos based steroid. Doesn't sound very appealing.
Yes, but also Lord Commander Eidolon by this point had basically an implant in his throat that allowed him to make a screech similar to what the layer did that Fabius Bile had implemented into him. But yeah, shortly after battling the Eldar, Fulgrim would be sent by the Emperor to check up on Horus because of some of the misuse of the World Eaters that Horus had been doing. He'd been kind of using the World Eaters haphazardly at this point of the like timeline. So like, oh, this world's like moderately rebellious. Just send the World Eaters and they'll deal with it. Which the World Eaters are particularly known for their brutality. We will talk about this later as well.
They're basically a manual exterminatus, okay?
They're a living weapon, yeah. They're a bunch of living weapons. They don't really have. The World Eaters are a legion that doesn't know how to say no. They just yes and killing it, yeah. They don't know when to tap out. That's not in their vocabulary.
So does Fulgrim maybe have a second thought about the fact that the Eldar he just talked to like said that he would need to do something?
Basically, he said the Eldar Eldred said, "Yeah, your brother's going traitor," and Fulgrim goes, "No,
you're lying," and then like literally like right after.
But then when Fulgrim is sitting in his ship about to meet Horus, he had his engines off. He was running low just so he would remain undetected until he wanted to be, and he just had this thought. He was like, "Well, if Horus really is traitor, I could end this entire thing right now by just ambushing his whole fleet." And then some random space marine walks up to him and said, "Sir, you forgot your sword," and then hands him the sword, and all of those thoughts just flush right out of his mind.
Uh-oh.
And then he goes, he talks to Horus. Horus basically says, "Yeah, man, I'm traitor. I want you to join me. Our father is trying to become a god, contrary to what he's told people, and a whole bunch of other stuff. He's leaving for nefarious purposes. That's why he left the Great Crusade. Blah blah blah. Standard Horus charisma. And Fulgrim kind of thinks about it. He thinks about it. He gets really upset. He starts crying. Cries for a while. The horse grabs his hand, says, "Brother, we can deliver you, and keep you. We can like stop the emperor and from becoming a god, and we can kind of stop the High Lords of Terra from taking our place, and not getting the Thunder Warrior treatment after the Great Crusade is done. We can fight back. Issue in a new order." And then Fulgrim eventually, after a little bit of argumentation with his brother, where he was super sad about both his brother being a traitor and his father, quote, having a bunch of lies and stuff, he goes, "Okay, fine, I'll join you, Horace." And what they do after that is he basically says, "Okay, well, Horace, I'll join you. You know what I'll do? I'll do you one better. I will go to Ferrus Manus and convince him to join us."
Because they're like best friends.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Closest things you can have to best friends with
So-
Space Marines. Or Primarchs.
He goes to meet with Ferrus Manus. He brings some of his Palatine Guard in, and just like one of his his main cap or Lord Commander Eidolon, and he basically brings them all in. And he talks to Ferrus in a private room with just the two of them. Basically tells Ferrus everything that's going on. Ferrus immediately flips from being happy and jovial with his brother to being absolutely enraged. Ferrus's basically first instinct is to start fighting his brother. And basically the two inside the little private room have a massive duel where Ferrus ends up breaking, hitting forward the fire blade that Fulgrim was using against him at the time so hard that it burst and basically detonated in the middle of the room. And it sent both of them flying back. Both of them got knocked unconscious. Nobody outside of the room at this point was questioning, and even if they were, going in there probably would have been suicide, since Ferrus Manus made it super clear never to go into his forage room.
Also, that the explosion of that sword is kind of like a symbolic thing of like, oh, friendship gone.
Yeah. So, basically, Fulgrim wakes up a little bit before Ferrus. He thinks about executing his brother, but the sword isn't there, so like the layer blade isn't, so he decides not to. Because he's like, oh, I can just convince him later, maybe. We'll try. And he leaves, and I think he takes the sword. Or no, he leaves the broken sword, and I think he took the hammer. And then he basically walks out of the room, tells his he tells all of his Palatine Guard, like basically gives them a signal, and they all just decapitate the Gorgon Terminators that were standing next to them, like across from them, in like one clean motion. So all of Ferrus's bodyguards got instantly executed.
Damn.
And
change of plans.
And basically, what Fulgrim had his fleet do was not kill, but cripple the Iron Hands fleet, and they just left. And they left and went back to Horus. Horus obviously very upset that Fulgrim did not fulfill his promise. They basically argued for a while. Started planning what we would call the Istvan III massacre, but before that happened, I think it's the Maria Vigila was ready, which that Bekwakinska lady that we talked about earlier. She basically made a giant musical out of everything she had collected on the Lara Temple. So almost all of the Legion, every single Remembrancer, and some other people showed up, like ship maintenance personnel and all that, showed up to this performance in the in like the amphitheater of the Remembrancers, which had been completely redone to resemble the Lair Temple in its entirety, and had basically nudish artworks everywhere and statues to things that vaguely resembled Slaaneshi demons and stuff.
Uh-oh.
And which some people know about that god at this point, and other people are just like, oh, Lair Temple, neat. So they start this giant musical play. The crowd gets so enthralled, with the exception of the people that did not go to the Lair Temple. So they are completely disgusted. One man yells for it to stop, which is the guy who's basically the librarian, and basically his interruption gets him ripped to shreds by the crowd, as well as all of his co-conspirators were beaten, and eventually the main guy of the group that was angry about it got his head stomped in by a space marine.
So pretty much anyone who's had experience with the Lair Temple is absolutely
just went full savage.
Is absolutely attached. They are fully engaged into this play.
You're like, how dare you interrupt my music?
You threw off threw off his groove. Stomps your head in.
Also, another thing is just a note: when Beck Wilkinska walked onto the stage, basically she's so attractive at this point that she moved. Not only Fulgrim said, "Oh, exquisite," but Julius, the first captain of the Emperor's Children, like literally thought she was attractive, which is for Space Marines are incapable of that thought normally. So she was so attractive, she moved a Space Marine to being like, God damn.
So you're acting. So they're literally reactivating the sex drives of war machines
of people who don't have them. Yeah, exactly. And then there's, like I said, the music starts. That happens. It just keeps going and going. Emotions up, down, everywhere, sideways. People get angry. Eventually, it devolves towards the end of the song into just this massive, like all the like humans, like the actual regular people are they're doing stuff. They're doing it to each other, and then every single Space Marine in the crowd starts just fucking ripping people to shreds, like anybody, each other, everyone.
A cacophony of immense
violence and other things,
like emotion and action.
Excess, yeah. Just excess, everything excessive. And then the song ends after they reveal instruments made of flesh, and the singer that was singing the entire time, like there's Becwa and this other lady, and this other lady just fucking, her bones start like bending and cracking. She starts floating up into the air, and then eventually she just turns into a demonette, and the demonette just decapitates Beck Wilkinska, and the entire crowd goes insane, starts going ridiculously crazy. Some of the Space Marines get up on the stage and start playing the instruments, and then they start directing the instruments towards the crowd, and because the Space Marines are so strong, it basically makes the sonic like waves so powerful that it kills people. So this is where your noise marines come from.
They're playing the instruments in such as intense way that they are unironically killing the audience.
Killing the crowd. Yes, so this is the origin story of noise marines.
This is the final form of rock music. It's comparable to having a giant rock thrown at your head.
Yeah, but this is it's funny origin story for noise marines. It's basically a giant like musical made Space Marines upset that the music stopped, and then they started playing them. And I think Fulgrim's quote, it was something to the effect of, "Ah, look at my sons. They play such beautiful music, the music of the apocalypse." My sons, they play such beautiful music. They're killing the crowd. So when I say that the fall of Fulgrim was not subtle, it wasn't. It wasn't subtle. It was tragic, but it wasn't subtle at all. It was just
so you're
boom.
so you're telling me that the music changed from Africa by Toto into the most intense version of metal pipes falling sound effect FX to a lethal degree, and then all of a sudden, bam, we're in chaos mode now.
Yeah, kind of. But so after this, all of Lord Vespian's Lord Commander Vespian's troops were sent to Isfahan III to stop a rogue traitor governor, and then the planet would be virus bombed. And I think it's Sol Talvitz, which was one of the commanders, the company commanders of the Emperor's Children, would actually escape and warn everybody that it was going on before that. Which Rylanor, the Dreadnought, wasn't supposed to be on Isfahan 3, but he basically, Sol Talvitz said, "Hey, can I trade spots with you?" And Rylanor was like, "Sounds kind of weird, but sure." And then basically figured out what was going on, and then rushed down to the surface, warned everybody, told I think it was Nathaniel Garrow of the Iron Warriors to go to Terra and warn everybody.
So basically, the fleet, after it has been chaos moded, is sent to go do a simple task of dealing with a rogue governor. They hit the
the people that didn't take the drugs were sent to go deal with the rogue governor. So the loyalists. And then the planet of Isfahan 3 was then virus bombed. So virus bombing, there are these big, basically like big explosive bombs that will blow up an initial explosion, which will release viral toxins called the Flesh Eater virus across the entire planet, and because they're being dropped a lot. And then that will basically melt the flesh of human beings or any other creatures, and it'll basically make it into like a primordial, like kind of like very gaseous like soup. And then a second ignition will be dropped, and that gas that's being released by this primordial like just nasty soup will then catch on fire, and the entire planet's atmosphere will burn. So, but thankfully to Sol Talvitz's credit, him warning everybody allowed a lot of them to get underground, and avoid the majority of the virus bombing of all the traitor legions that were there. But once everyone had reemerged, they went, "Oh shit, Angron's here."
God damn.
So
imagine getting virus bombed and being like, "We're safe," and then you pop up and then it's like Angron just being like,
But funnily enough, Horus's plan, if the virus bombing failed, was not to land on the planet and fight. Angron just said, "Ah, fuck, it failed. I'm gonna go in there and kill everybody." Horus's plan was just to keep bombarding the planet, but with like just conventional, like, orbital bombardment until the planet cracked open. But Angron said, "No, I'm dealing with this personally," and then every other Space Marine Legion, that was the traitor legions that were there, ended up dropping all their troops on the planet as well. So then it launched this, like, basically I think like few month long battle of the traitor legions, purging their loyalist counterparts, of which there was not as many, with the exception of the world leaders, because the world leaders had. We'll talk about that later in the world leaders episode, but there's a reason why there were more loyalist world leaders than any other legion. But yeah, no, they all went fucking psycho and started fighting each other. The Emperor's Children, one of the company commanders named Lucius, ended up ended up betraying the loyalists, and because he had stolen a headpiece of the traitors, and he had communicated with Lord Commander Eidolon, basically saying, "Hey, I'll give you an opening to exploit, and you can go kill all of the traitors and or the loyalists in their defenses." So he killed his an entire squad because he was a master swordsman, and this gentleman who's another commander named Solomon Demeter. You might remember him because he stole the glory from Fulgrim before at the Bridge of the Diasporics. He basically helped Lucius fight his own squad because he thought Lucius was fighting traitors, and so Solomon Demeter's final moments where it was him killing loyalist Emperor's children on accident, and then Lucius being like, "Haha, I'm a traitor, stab."
Haha.
While Solomon was on the floor crying because he, killed his own
You were
brother.
on the wrong side of that coin flip. Now it's time to lose your head. Hee.
That allowed the traitor Emperor's children to finish off the loyalists. And then basically all the other traitor legions besides the Emperor's children went to goading actions to get other legions to come to Isfahan 5, where an event that we will call the Drop Site Massacre happens. So there were 3 traitor legions that were, I think, 3 or 4 traitor legions. I think it was 3. Let me look it up real quick. But the Emperor's Children were one of the like complete traitor legions that was that was known by the enemies of the loyalists of the Imperium to be a traitor, as well as the Sons of Horus and the Death Guard. Yeah, so basically Ferrus Manus, the Salamanders, and the Raven Guard were to go in first. They were fighting the Emperor's children. Particularly the Iron Hands and the Emperor's children were fighting because Ferrus Manus was angry about getting his shit stolen after dueling him and getting blown up. So Ferrus Manus basically haphazardly charges into battle against the Emperor's children. Some of the Iron Hands made commentary on how far the Emperor's children had fallen since they last met, because noise marines were running around, and basically all of them had fallen to Slaanesh at this point over the course of like a few years, or not even a few years, just kind of like a few months. Really got really bad. But yeah, no, all of those legions fought, and then towards the end or midpoint of the battle, they started pulling back because they were getting reinforcements. The loyalists were getting reinforcements from the Night Lords, the Iron Warriors, the Word Bearers, and the Alpha Legion. But what they didn't expect was that all of those 4 legions were traitors. So the Conrad Kurz and or not Conrad Kurz, the Raven Guard and the Salamanders were retreating to regroup with the Iron Warriors and the Word Bearers and all of those people, and they just got gunned down in a firing line of death. And and then basically the Iron Hands were stuck on their own fighting against Fulgrim and the Emperor's children. They would duel again. Fulgrim would basically try to convince Ferrus Manus of his cause the entire time, and then eventually end up executing Ferrus Manus because obviously Ferrus Manus wasn't in the mood to be swayed. So Ferrus Manus gets decapitated. The other 2 legions barely escape, and all of the traitor legions, with the exception of the Thousand Sons, who weren't really in the Horus Heresy at that point because of the burning of Prospero, were all united in cause, and they were all present. So then they would. So is there anything you want to know about those 2 Isfahan events, I guess, before we move on to the conversation?
So basically, their whole plan is to. Getting back to it, so after this planet is virus bombed and then just absolutely viscerated by Angron, they're trying to attract loyalist legions.
they did attract
Yeah.
loyalist legions to Ispan 5. So Ispan 3 is where the loyalists of the traitor legions were killed. The loyalist legions were massacred on Ispan 5. So same system, just
So
different people.
they attracted in many.
Yeah, so basically, they were like, oh well, they heard about all of our loyalist legionaries dying, and we made no secret of it. They're going to come here to Isfahan 5, try to engage us because we're building a false defense, and then we're going to engage them, and then when they engage them, the other traitor legions that the loyalists didn't know were traitor yet dropped behind them, basically said nothing to the loyalists. The loyalists were going to go talk to them. The Salamanders and the Raven Guard were, and then the Salamanders and Raven Guard just got gunned down by a firing line of Iron Warriors and War Bears and all that.
So basically, they got attracted in to fight the known traitor legions.
They got completely surrounded.
And then they're like, oh look, reinforcements! And then the reinforcements started shooting at them.
Oh, why are they shooting
at us? There must be some mistake. There was a mistake. Not with the quote unquote reinforcements.
Like I said, there was a funny moment because the Iron Warriors were traitors, so were the Word Bears. But the Word Bears were, going in to like actually fight in like concealed or concise melee and more close range engagements. But the Iron Warriors would just occasionally miss a shot and hit a hit a random Word Bear. and Argo Tal voice, which is a Word Bear voice back, said, "Can you please stop hitting us?" And the Iron Warrior responded with, "You have your prayers, brother," which is basically just a "go fuck yourself" from the Iron Warriors. But the Iron Warriors were basically hard carrying the Horus heresies, which we'll get into later, but in our next episode.
Damn.
Oh Lord, that's a funny moment. But yeah, no. And so what happens after this is, so basically after Fulgrim kills his brother, he says, "I don't want to do this anymore. I'm done. Can you take over?" He says basically to the demon and the layer blade. And the demon just literally flesh puppets, flesh puppets him, and they. And then the demon itself in Fulgrim's body goes to meet with Horus, unarmed, and goes, "Hey, I have a present for you." Throws Ferrus Manus' head next to him, and then even Horus is like, "What the fuck?" and then basically says, "You're not my brother," because he can read people really well. And then the demon in Fulgrim's body says, "Yes, exactly."
Damn, how hard would that one be to know?
But I am,
last time we checked, Fulgrim was so casual with the head of brothers.
Yeah, well, I mean,
not that kind of head.
But he threw. I know. That's why I said. He throws the head down. Horus says, "What the fuck? You're not my brother." And the demon says, "Exactly. I'm not your brother." But he says, "I'm still here for you. I'm on your side. I'm a demon of Slaanesh. That's what I'm here for." And Horus just kind of begrudgingly goes, "Whatever. But I'll find a way to get you out of that body eventually."
No.
And basically, Horus's bucket, whatever.
Hold on.
Care. And no,
I need a pause.
We're gonna keep this in.
We cannot leave.
I'm gonna leave it in. I'm gonna send it to your mother. And anyways, we're moving on.
You can send. You're the one who send me that, by the way. So.
No, moving on. After this point, they do the whole classic rush for Terra. A whole bunch of fights happen. But getting to the more important part, we get to, I guess about halfway to Terra, the Lucius comes up with this beautiful idea where he's like, "Hey, Dad is acting kind of weird. I keep having dreams of this painting that's on the ship. Uh, let's go like grab our dad and make and capture him and try to excise whatever's in him." Basically they torture Fulgrim, but apparently Fulgrim had Bornman was his way back out of the painting, and that was just the demon wanting to get back in. So Fulgrim was in his own body, just let his sons torture him, and basically said nothing until I was done, and then he said, "You guys did good. So let's do this next Sunday."
Tip top, 10 out of 10, no comments.
10 out of 10.
CBD,
torturing sessions, thank you.
CBT, maximum.
No. Anyways, but and then Lucius was like, "What the fuck?" And then they all, that's just a funny side note. But basically, they fight their way towards Terra. A whole bunch of battles happen that are kind of just me versus ex-loyalist Legion. But when they get to Terra, the Emperor's children do take part in the siege of Terra for about 5 minutes. And then the Emperor's children go off into the cities of Terra, and they basically just kill civilians and torture them. They literally just go around everywhere they can find, hunting down civilians, powderizing them into a powder, snorting the powder, and then massacring more civilians.
Damn. Slaaneshi influence really be doing that, huh?
And that's all they did during the siege of Terra. I mean, there was a few of them that were sane enough to actually join the siege, like Lucius and his group, but like,
bro, how does Chaos get anything
Lucius,
done?
Well, the Iron Warriors who despise Chaos is basically they were hard carrying it, and then get into that later because the Iron Warriors did not stay for the whole time either.
So you're telling me is that they're on Terra? They could have probably taken over and killed Terra if they just stopped focusing on like. I wonder how many times of illicit drugs you can make out of civilians.
Yeah, but also I forgot at some point. So Perturabo absolutely hated Fulgrim at this point. He's the Iron Warriors, like Primarch. But I forgot a complete fucking show the complete thing before. I think it happened before, if I'm not mistaken. It either happened before or after the Horus Heresy. There was this event called Angel. They were looking for a thing called Angel Exterminatus. I think it was before, yeah, or not before the Siege of Terra. Sorry, but they were looking for the Angel Exterminatus, which was supposed to be a super weapon that basically ends like would end the Siege of Terra and basically be allow like a super weapon that could basically win the Siege of Terra. But so Fulgrim gives this cloak to Perturabo that he's like just as a gift, like here's a cool cloak. What they didn't realize is there was no Angel Exterminatus. Fulgrim had just made it up. It was just a plot between Fulgrim and Erebus to make to sacrifice Perturabo to make him into a demon prince. And
okay, so
basically what happened was that Perturabo and Fulgrim got in a duel, and Perturabo absolutely kicked Fulgrim's ass. Like he literally killed Fulgrim, and the death of Fulgrim, literally Fulgrim just got absolutely like Slaanesh said that's funny, and then just made Fulgrim into a demon prince anyway.
As long as they get a demon prince out of it.
So Perturabo didn't even need to be killed. Like it was just a whole thing where Slaanesh thought it'd be funny to turn them against each other.
Okay, how do I want to put this? Explaining this.
But this was before
explaining the Siege of Terra. So at this point, at the Siege of Terra, Fulgrim is no longer even like humanistic, like whatever the Primarchs are considered.
He's
literally just demon.
He is basically a demon. Yeah, he's basically a demon.
But
but all the Angel Exterminatus events happened before that. So basically Perturabo has every reason to be super pissed at the traitors because every time they have an opportunity, they either don't listen to him, or they, in one case, they tried to kill him.
No, like
But Perturabo is the one that planned the siege.
listening about the Siege of Tyr kind of sounds like two people playing chess with like 3 players on each side, and 2 players
It's
on the traitor side are just playing tic-tac-toe on the board somehow.
Yeah, it's Perturabo suggesting things getting either ignored, or having it changed because of the fact that Horus is just wanting to get more glory or winning something to appease other people. But Perturabo was the only one with an actual plan. He basically instrumented the Horus or the Siege of Terra, and then he got his troops taken off the front line for the Death Guard, and then just said, "Fuck this shit, I'm out." And the Iron Warriors eventually abandoned the Siege of Terra, and which was basically spelling the end of it.
So would Terra be fucking destroyed if like
if the Iron Warriors didn't leave? Probably. But then Horus obviously seeing all his traitor legions just abandoning the siege or doing like weird shit, just said, "I'm gonna lower my defenses because the Dark Angels might be here soon." Or the Dark Angels. Wait, no.
The Dark Angels and the Blood.
It was the Dark Angels.
The Blood Angels.
Well, the Blood Angels were already there, but he's like, the Dark Angels might be here soon. So he lowers his defenses, and then obviously all the things that happen in the Horus Heresy happen. So the Emperor Sanguinius, Caldor Drago, I think was his name, or not Caldor Drago. What was the shield captain of the
No clue.
Custodians?
Hold on. What is it?
The commander.
Captain of the what? Shield captain of the what?
Custodians. It was Captain General Constantine Valdor. It was Constantine Valdor was the one during the Great Crusade. So Constantine Valdor, like I said, Sanguinius, the Emperor, a bunch of other space marines and junk were teleported onto the Horus's flagship. The okay, now I'm forgetting all the important information.
Check the script.
That's not on the script, man. All right. Horus's flag shit, because I'm basically just trying to fill in people on the events of the Horus Heresy. You know, the Vengeful Spirit. That's right. I don't know why I didn't remember that. It's so important. It's the most important ship in the war, pretty much. But yeah, they all teleported on the Vengeful Spirit. Horus killed Sanguinius. The Blood Angels went crazy on Terra. The Emperor eventually, after getting crippled, killed Horus, because Horus was empowered with all the Chaos Gods, and the Emperor also didn't want to kill him. Bing bang boom, Horus Heresy over.
I don't think the Emperor really could have killed him in that state.
He did. I mean, he did. He literally deleted his soul. So, but yeah, for it, all the legions, the traitor legions, fell back to the Eye of Terror, where they were pursued relentlessly. The Emperor's children, their first act was to fight the world leaders as soon as they got into the Eye of Terror. They did all right in that war, and the world leaders and the Emperor's children signed a peace treaty. This would lead to a gentleman being named something that we will talk about later. It's a very important event for the world leaders, so we'll talk about that when we get to the world leaders. And then the Emperor's children would basically do nothing besides, raid and raid people occasionally and flay people alive after that. So basically, after the Horus Heresy, they were just doing nothing. So Fulgrim would occasionally go out and lead attacks. Fulgrim, after a certain event that we may talk about in a little offshoot episode involving Rylanor, was basically at his pride wounded and didn't do anything for a few hundred years. But yeah, the Emperor's Children have basically just been reduced to the foot soldiers of Slaanesh, just doing whatever Slaanesh wants and needs at this point. So they haven't done a whole lot. They were present in a lot of Abaddon's crusades, especially the 13th Black Crusade. But so is everybody else. So,
So, like,
Fabius Bile went off on his own because he was banished from the Legion at some point. I don't know where he just left it. I don't quite remember, but Fabius Bile was basically instrumental for the fall of the Slaanesh. Basically, what he does now is he goes around basically being a plot device for literally anything that the Games Workshop needs him to be. He made a clone of Horus, and the clone of Horus was killed by Abaddon, hence cementing the Abaddon as the leader of the successor to Horus. He also made a perfect clone of Fulgrim, which he bartered with Trzin for a bunch of gene seed for him. The perfect clone of Fulgrim is just sitting in Trzin's museum, which we'll talk about Trzin at some point because Trzin is
we're not. That's gonna. I hate to be honest. They're gonna need their own episode.
That's definitely, yeah. Trzin, at least the Infinite and the Divine things are going to be in their own episode, if not Trzin alone. Because Trzin is a very important figure and amongst the Necrons and a very funny man. A very funny robot man. But yeah, him and Fabius Bile have met. They've talked. I think Trzin has a weird respect for Fabius Bile because they're both kind of like scientist. I would say.
Okay, calling Trzin a quote unquote scientist and not more of just a that.
He's a historian. They're both collectors of things. Like Fabius Bile has a bunch of weird artifacts of the past as well. So Fabius is like, I respect, or Trzin is like, I respect you to some degree.
I don't want to say this. It's like calling a kid that sits in a meme chat and just just downloads all the memes that he finds funny a comedian.
Yeah, but like Fabius Bile is basically the he's the Mad Dr. Frankenstein of the Warhammer 40k universe. Basically all he does is he does genetic experiments to try to make cooler things, and generally it's like, hey, look at this cool new genetic abomination I've made. And basically he's trying to make the perfect evolution of humanity, which so far he's done pretty much negligible amounts when it comes to that.
Wait. He makes a perfect clone of Fulgrim. Why not just make more clones of Primarchs? Aren't Primarchs objectively better?
Because GW realized that was a weird idea, and also depending on the Primarch, it kind of do work.
I know that there's gene defects, but like
the Fulgrim clone technically worked. The Horus one was basically just a weak imitation. But
then they scrap. I'm guessing they like necessarily retcon the entire thing, but they just like threw the entire plot aside.
They didn't. They basically just said, fuck it. Fulgrim clone is a weird idea. We're just gonna throw him in Trzin's gallery. Trzin's gallery is basically just a giant retcon bin. It's like, we don't want to deal with this thing. Throw it in the. I
bet if you look there, you go in there. There's like chaos androids. Like before. What is it? My brain hurts today. Before Gene Stealers, like the weird like Tyranid human hybrids.
I think fifth or sixth edition they started like kind of like merging things together to be like actually sane when in the universe. So like before there's kind of wacky goofy stuff like I think it's like 6th edition, 6th edition where Necrons started to become actually Necrons as opposed to literally just Terminator ripoffs, which we're not going to go too deep into that. We'll save that.
Look, all I'm going to say is they went from spooky, scary skeletons. They went from
spooky, scary Terminators to actually a fleshed out race.
They went from they went to spooky, scary skeletons to like Egyptian warpath gods.
Yeah, that have dementia. But yeah, no. Like I said, there are a bunch of war bands of the Emperor's Children. Most of them do stuff. They don't really do a whole lot. Like I said, the most impactful chaos like group, the two most I should say, at recent lore have been Death Guard and Black Legion, and then the world leaders have been somewhat influential recently too. So, but the Emperor's Children are still waiting on good lore for themselves.
So they just fall into pretty much obscurity after the Horse Heresy.
Pretty much, they like doing depraved stuff on their homeworld, capturing slaves for that, and then just or they're not their homeworld, their demon world, but yeah, their homeworld is probably dead. I think it is dead in lore. Yeah, Chemos is gone. Chemos dead. But most traitor homeworlds were destroyed. Uh, Either to wipe the history of the traitors.
So what you're telling me is that Fabius Bile as a character has had more
war.
influence in recent lore than the entirety of the Emperor's Children.
Yes, as a single character, Fabius Bile is the most interesting Emperor's Children character. Now there is Lucius as well. Lucius became the champion of Slaanesh. Basically, if anyone takes pride in killing Lucius, they become Lucius. So if he dies, and you take the least bit of pride in it, Lucius just takes over your body, and you become a face on his skin, pretty much, which is very strange. But
so he gets his own dumb bullshit respawn mechanic.
Yeah, so Lucius basically just looks like a burn victim that has faces on him instead of burning scars, which is I know that sounds kind of fucked, but yeah, that is just him. He also has a long tongue because Slaanesh moments.
I just I like to imagine that he just gets hit by by an artillery shell head on, dies, and then some artilleryman.
Oh no! Funnily enough, that'd probably be the smartest way to kill him. Would just be like blindfold the artillerymen. Just don't tell them they killed anybody, and be like, all right.
Well, here's the thing. Though. He becomes the whole point of it is like he becomes whatever kills him, so he becomes stronger. But if something that's arguably weaker kills him...
No, he only becomes something... They only become Lucius if they take pride in it. So like I said, the way that the way to kill Lucius would just be to blind fire artillery and then just hope you killed him and not take pride in it.
No, but here's what I'm...
Be like literally blindfold an artilleryman, a bunch of artillerymen, fire in a line, hopefully
No, but here's my thing, though. Is like... He becomes them, right?
No, only if they take pride in it.
But what I'm saying is that if they do take pride in it, and it's like some guy, he just becomes some guy.
No, they get bigger. They literally become a face.
Oh.
If a random human being kills them, they just transform and mutate into Lucius. Like it's warped thing. It's warp magic. It doesn't really follow the rules. It doesn't follow the rule.
Pull up.
And they'll just find they will just hunt down his armor, put on the armor, and literally just like look and act exactly like.
I don't know. I feel like you could just like use the artilleryman normally, and if like one of them goes, "Yippee! I hit him!" then you just like everyone just ties him down, and then just executes him when he becomes Lucius.
Yeah, but then the Inquisitor that orchestrated it goes, "Yeah, I did it." And then,
No. He's not anywhere in it. No, one guy orchestrates it. Everyone, I don't know. Bring in servitors. Get servitors to do it. That's easy.
Yeah, maybe. But then that little hint of consciousness that they have goes, "I just killed the fucking space freak." And it's like, uh-oh.
No. We give him a double lobotomy.
Yeah. Lucius is a wacky character, but he's an expert swordsman. He was an expert swordsman before he became Chaos Tainted. He just got better and kind of because he's basically immortal. Yeah. The whole betrayal thing, I think, is why he became favored by Slaanesh. He also did a whole bunch of other deeds and sacrifices and stuff, so he's basically just the champion of Slaanesh. Noise Marines are still kicking. They're a thing. Noise Marines are cool, objectively.
There's just nothing's going on with them.
They're a little on the ridiculous side, even for Warhammer.
I mean, it's not truly ridiculous. I mean, like, being able to kill people with loud noises is something that we've established. It's just that they're on the sidelines. without any lore advancements.
Oh, I wouldn't say they're on the sidelines. They're basically the Emperor's Children's main like
Yeah.
heavy weapons
Well,
unit.
yeah, but the
So
Emperor's children haven't been doing anything. That's the issue.
they've been doing some things, but it's not a lot. But yeah, they overall Fulgrim, pretty neat. His mini, if anyone wants to look up the Emperor's Children snake mini, or not, just don't say snake, but just search up Fulgrim 40k mini, and I'm sure you'd find the 40k one. And then if you want to search up his 30k mini, it'll look like he did before he became a demon prince. Yeah, but he is a demon prince of Slanesh. Fabius Bile is basically just doing whatever he wants. And then Lord Commander Eidolon was at one point decapitated by Fulgrim. The head was attached back on, and then he's just basically a zombie now. He's alive, but he's alive in like the air quote sense.
Look, all I'm gonna say.
But
Look,
Eidolon after being basically the first to get all of the experiments done on him and the most heavily modified by Fabius was just turned into a zombie. Because and Fulgrim was like, I didn't mean to kill him. I'm sad, and then they attached his head back on.
whoops. Undo.
Yeah, well, that's Fabius for you. I have made this man an abomination. I'm proud now. But yeah, Slanesh kind of both likes and hates Fabius because Fabius is basically a staunch atheist in a world full of demons, which is kind of weird to say. But he basically just goes, no, I don't believe in you," while staring down a demon. Demons actually get hurt by how much Fabius is staunch in his beliefs, which you'd think he was almost stupid in the way that he does that. But he's just kind of like, if I don't believe in you, it doesn't give you any power, so I just don't.
Is this like this is literally elf logic, okay?
He literally chalks it up. He chalks it up to being like the war basically chalks it up to him just believing that they're just warp manifestations, which is technically true, but they're also technically real. So, but he basically just through the power of atheism hurts demons. Which I don't know how you go through everything that the Emperor's Children went through and still come out an atheist.
Bro, this guy is literally using elf logic, but to the opposite end. It's like I'm talking about the movie Elf. It's like at the end there's like everyone needs to believe in Santa really quickly, and it's like nope you can't hurt me. And like I just imagine like an imperial world, like all of a sudden like speakers come out of the ground. It's like everyone stop believing in demons real quick.
Well, the problem is that the Imperium, because of its degradation, still technically believes in they believe in demons. They don't believe in it's like the knowledge of traitor stories has basically been wiped out of existence. It was just like, oh yeah, the Emperor fought for your survival against hordes of demons, and if you don't do what you do for the Emperor, you're gonna go to hell.
Which is not. I don't know how true that is.
Not in well, that's just how it's treated in the war. I mean, obviously, there are people that know about demons because Grey Knights exist and Inquisitors exist.
There's also just people that have been attacked by demons.
Yeah. Well, they usually get shot because demonic corruption spreads. They either get shot or inducted into the Inquisition as Inquisitional soldiers, so which are granted special knowledge because
yeah, no, like, oh, you're going to be in the Inquisition. Your entire job's to deal with chaos. What is that? You don't need to know that.
Yeah, no. But it's like if you're a guardsman that survives, they test you for corruption. As long as you didn't see Grey Knights, you're good to go. You are part of the Inquisition, though. If you saw Grey Knights, you may get killed anyway. Or just mind wiped. But if you have the least trace of corruption, you're just fucking dead.
I can't even have a little Slanesh corruption, even as a tree.
No. The seeds of corruption slowly, brothers. We must not allow them to spread. The But yeah, no, it's like same with Tyranids to a degree, which we'll talk about later. Is the gene stealer viruses can be spread from just interaction with Tyranids. So they go, you might be a gene stealer. Test you, and if you come back positive, you're just fucking shot. Not dealing with that one.
Say the like two tongues come out and they're covered in like spores. You die now.
Yeah, but in conclusion, the Emperor's Children kind of fucked. The fall of the Emperor's Children, not gradual. The fall of Fulgrim kind of sad. Because Fulgrim is like basically the perfect like son of the Emperor. He was it's theorized that he was never supposed to be the one that fell. Supposedly him and Jagatai Khan had their homeworld swapped, which I believe is bullshit because Jagatai Khan's planet was perfect for him. So that's besides the point. We'll talk about that soon because the White Scars are very, very, very nearby.
I don't know.
But as far as everything goes today, is there anything you want to say before we close?
I just wanted to say this, and I'm gonna reiterate this pretty much every single time we talk about Traitor Legions. I just find so much of what because with the Traitor Legions and with the when I say this, the ability to divine aspects of the future and be able to actually see the future have been assumed in so many different characters, including the Emperor, including a few other slightly more minor characters, and it's just literally one meeting could have solved the entirety of the Horus Heresy. How not to get treated by demons. The guide. This is what demons are. This is what demons literally what are those programs as a kid? The dare programs, but for demons.
Oh, the dare program. Dare programs. Demons, and then whatever the rest of the acronym.
Hell, even what is it? An exorcist's treatment would have even better. And when I say that, I mean the chapter exorcists. They're much more final faction, but their whole point is oh yes, to get initiated into our chapter, you literally have to be possessed by a demon.
It's extremely expensive to do that. That's why they didn't do it with everybody. But yeah.
Yeah, but at least with Primarchs it would be a good idea because you put a lot of money into them, you might as well buy the security.
Maybe. Well, the only Primarch to be, I guess, fully possessed by another demon has been Fulgrim. So the other ones have talked to demons and been like, "Hey, how you doing?" But Fulgrim is the only one that's been actually possessed.
If the Emperor was just a good dad for 15 sentences, if a demon ever talks to you, just say no.
Also, I do think that the Demon Prince of Fulgrim is also a merging of Fulgrim's body with the actual demon that was in the Lair Blade. I don't think Fulgrim.
No, that's not Fulgrim anymore.
Actually, Fulgrim's not Fulgrim anymore, but Fulgrim during part of the Horus Heresy was still Fulgrim. Yeah. On and off. So it's semantics. Either way, he was fucked regardless. So it wasn't like there was any much difference at that point. But yeah. Anyways, our next episode will be after a skipped week. So we will not be having an episode next week, but the week after that, we will be doing the Iron Warriors. So the 4th Legion, and I bid you adieu. If you had a good, if you enjoyed anything you heard today. Patreon.com/MidwestHammer. We would love your support. Any amount helps. If not, then just download on Spotify, and have a good one.